Does it make a difference where you donate? Most people don't seem to think so, estimating that the best charities are only 1.5 to 2 times better than an average charity. However, the difference is much more astounding than that. Some charities are tens, hundreds, or even thousands of times more effective than others. We live at an unprecedented time where you have an astonishing opportunity to improve the world through charitable donations. However, where you donate really matters. As individuals, we all have limited resources. If you'd like to maximise the impact of your donations, it's vital to find and support the most cost-effective organisations. G'day folks, welcome back to Giving What We Can, where we look at how to maximise our charitable impact. In this video, we look at how to evaluate charities based on their effectiveness, and then stay tuned for some shortcuts to help you quickly find outstanding charities to support. In this video, we're assuming that you've already narrowed down on a cause area to support. If you haven't already done so, I recommend that you first watch our video on choosing a cause, which goes through how to match your values and resources to what the world needs. A quick recap on cause prioritisation. The rule of thumb for finding the most impactful causes is to find causes working on problems that are large in scale, have tractable solutions, or at least a way forward, and are relatively neglected. They have a clear need for more funding. After choosing a promising cause to support, we're ready to select an outstanding charity working in that area. To ensure that every donation does as much good as possible, it's important to support charities that are cost effective. In other words, we should try to determine which charities can accomplish the most good with the resources that we give them. We want the best bang for our charitable buck. These charities are likely to be ones with strong evidence, cost effectiveness, and room for more funding. Let's go through these one at a time. One good indication that a charity will use your donation effectively is that effectiveness is part of their mission and/or strategy. Charities that are focused on effectiveness are more likely to run programs that are supported by evidence and strong reasoning. They will run regular evaluations of their own programs and organisation, and they will adapt if necessary in response to what they learn. If a charity is making all these efforts to ensure the effectiveness of their work, you can be reasonably confident that any donations to them will be put to good use. A good way to learn about a charity's attitudes towards effectiveness is on their website's About page. For instance, the Good Food Institute's About GFI page makes several references to effectiveness, evidence, and doing the most good we can. They even provide a theory of change which explains the ways in which their programs are expected to have an impact. Charities that select their programs based on evidence will generally be happy to provide that evidence to potential donors. It should be easy to find references to research and data in the charity's communications. Of course, there are different types of evidence, which vary in terms of their strength, generalizability, and availability. The following types of evidence are listed roughly in descending order of strength: meta-analyses and systematic reviews, individual scientific studies, especially randomized controlled trials, expert opinions, historical evidence, logic and reasoning, and case studies, anecdotes, and personal stories. In general, it's best to support charities whose activities are supported by multiple different types of evidence. When evidence from different streams converge to support the same claim, that evidence is collectively more robust than individual pieces of evidence. One example of self-reflection and agility is Evidence Action's 2019 decision to end one of its programs. They gathered enough evidence to determine that the cost of the program was too high relative to its impact, and they knew that they had other, more cost-effective opportunities. They made a public announcement that they would end their less effective program in order to direct more resources towards their most effective programs. Look for signs that a charity regularly evaluates itself and makes appropriate changes over time. Some effective charities like GiveWell and Animal Charity Evaluators will keep public records of mistakes they've made or changes they've implemented. Such lists of mistakes should be understood as positive or neutral reflections on the organisation, not negative ones. After all, every organisation makes mistakes. The important thing is that the organisation should be able to realise its mistakes, fix them, and be transparent with donors. Cost effectiveness is the measure of how much it takes in resources to achieve a desired outcome. In theory at least, you can calculate a charity's cost effectiveness by adding up everything the charity will achieve with its resources, its benefits, adding up all of the costs incurred by the charity to do this, its costs, and then dividing the benefits by the costs. In practice, however, calculating a charity's cost effectiveness is typically quite complicated. It's not always easy to measure or quantify the charity's benefits and costs, especially when you're looking at what the next dollar might get you, not just what things cost in the past. You've probably heard this statement, past performance is no guarantee of future results, spoken quickly at the end of ads for financial products. The same is true for charities. When estimating cost effectiveness, you need to combine the best evidence from the past with rational expectations of what the future might look like. Imagine that you're trying to determine which of two charities is more cost effective based on historical data. Both charities have similar programs. They both save lives by administering healthcare. You've added up all the lives that each charity has saved, all the costs incurred by each charity, and you've divided each charity's benefits, measured in lives saved, by its costs, measured in dollars. If you simply compare Charity A to Charity B without doing a cost-effectiveness calculation, you would immediately notice that Charity A has saved more lives. However, when you calculate cost-effectiveness, it becomes clear that Charity B is the more cost-effective charity. Charity A saves 2 lives per $10,000, whereas Charity B saves 5 lives per $10,000. All else being equal, it is more cost-effective to give money to Charity B. Though it has saved fewer lives overall than Charity A, it saves lives more cost-effectively. Two charities that work towards the same goal, such as saving lives, are relatively easy to compare. However, two charities that help people in different ways can be difficult to compare. Suppose you're trying to compare Charity C, which provides massages to millionaires, and Charity D, which distributes insecticide-treated bed nets to children in low-income countries. Simply comparing the number of outcomes that each charity achieves per dollar would be misleading in this case. Charity C achieves 0.1 outcomes per dollar, or put another way, it costs them $100 to achieve an outcome, whereas Charity D, on the other hand, only achieves 0.05 outcomes per dollar, or $200 to achieve one outcome. If Charity C and D were both producing the same outcome, Charity C would be the more cost-effective option. However, they are producing very different outcomes. It costs Charity C $100 to give a millionaire a massage for an hour, where it costs $200 for Charity D to prevent a case of malaria. If you had $200 to donate, would it be better spent at Charity C, giving 2 millionaires a massage, or Charity D, preventing 1 case of malaria? Of course, I think that preventing malaria would be a much better use of your donation. Comparing charities can be like comparing apples and oranges. It isn't always easy, and there aren't perfect ways of making decisions. But there are some useful approaches. One way of comparing charities with different outcomes is to create an equation to convert different outcome measures to a third common measure. For instance, the charity evaluator GiveWell evaluates charities that create several kinds of outcomes, such as lives saved, increased consumption, and years of healthy life. To compare the cost effectiveness of different kinds of charities, GiveWell compares each charity's cost effectiveness to a single measure, the cost effectiveness of simply giving cash to people in need. GiveWell uses some complex formulas and value judgments to convert outcomes like lives saved into an equivalent amount of cash given. These calculations aren't perfect, but they can be very helpful in comparing different interventions and charities. In this example from GiveWell, donating to deworm the world is estimated to be about 29 times more effective than giving cash to people in need. When you compare charities that you're interested in supporting, you may need to think further about how different outcomes compare to each other. For instance, if you're interested in comparing animal charities to human-focused charities, you might need to think about how the value of a farmed animal's life compares to the value of a human life. If you're interested in comparing a charity focused on the future to a charity working to help people today, you might need to think about how to value your great-great-granddaughter's life compared to the value of a life today. There are no clear answers to these questions, but some lines of reasoning are going to be much better than others. You shouldn't just look for charities that have been cost-effective in the past, you should look for charities that will be cost-effective in the future, particularly with the use of your donation. To determine whether a charity will be as cost-effective in the future as it has been in the past, you should consider how much need the charity has for more funding. If the charity has recently pioneered a new and highly cost-effective program, but the program has not received significant attention or funds, then it could be an ideal giving opportunity. If, on the other hand, a cost-effective charity is already well-known and well-funded, your donation may not make that much of a difference, particularly if the charity already has a large budget and your donation is relatively small. Charity evaluators like GiveWell and Animal Charity Evaluators refer to a charity's funding needs as room for more funding. To determine how a charity will be affected by your potential donation, you should consider, has a charity recently received many large donations or grants? Does the charity have plans for growth or expansion? Is the charity mostly limited by a lack of funding, or are there other barriers to a charity's work, such as the lack of skilled employees? Will your donation support the charity's most effective programs, or will they go to one of the less effective ones? Are you donating a large enough amount that it will allow the charity to create a completely new program? And could the charity's programs have diminishing returns? For instance, has the charity been working to cure a disease that is already nearly eradicated? The 3 guidelines described above should go a long way towards helping you identify the most effective charities to support. Still, there are other factors you may want to consider as well. These include things like transparency, an impressive track record, a clear mission, strong leadership, and a healthy workplace culture. It's worth noting that an incredibly widespread misconception about charity effectiveness is that the best charities are those with the lowest administrative or overhead costs. However, overheads rarely contribute significantly to the effectiveness of a charity. Consider charities E and F described in this table. In this example, charity E spends very little on overhead costs, but charity F still saves lives more cost effectively. Just as successful businesses spend money to make money, successful charities invest some of their budget in hiring talented teams and building reliable infrastructure in order to achieve their goals. To identify effective charities, you shouldn't simply look for the charities that spend as little as possible. You should look for the charities that achieve a lot relative to the amount that they spend. The focus on efficiency instead of effectiveness is so pervasive that it is commonly known as the overhead myth, and it's something you want to be careful to avoid. If you've made it this far, you might be worried that this sounds very hard. And that's totally understandable because it is hard. Fortunately, there are some shortcuts that individuals can take so that their donations can be highly effective without having to be an expert charity evaluator. Here are our top 3 tips for maximising your charitable impact with minimal effort. Tip 1 is to review the advice of charity evaluators. There are several organisations dedicated to evaluating charities based on how effectively they use donations. We particularly recommend using the advice of GiveWell, which evaluates charities working on global health and development, and Animal Charity Evaluators, which evaluates charities working on animal advocacy. At Giving What We Can, we partner with several evaluators and grant-making organisations and have compiled their charity recommendations onto our Giving Recommendations page. Tip 2 is to donate to a Regranting fund. If you know which causes you'd like to support, but you're having trouble selecting a charity, consider donating to a fund. Funds are easy for donors and highly effective. They help donors to pool their money together so they can find outstanding giving opportunities that are evaluated by expert grant makers and trusted charity evaluators. The fund managers will do the work of staying up to date on the latest research on charity effectiveness so you don't have to. This means that your donations are likely to stay effective. Using a Regranting fund is similar to using an investment fund, instead of trying to pick which individual stocks will be the best investments. We've compiled a list of recommended Regranting funds on our Giving Recommendations page. Tip 3 is to join an effective giving community. By joining an effective giving community, you can be surrounded with people who also care about helping others effectively. You can stay up to date on charity effectiveness, ask questions of other effective givers, and receive the support you need to give more effectively. It can help you to live up to your values and to fulfill your desire to use your resources to help others. If that sounds good to you, I invite you to join the Giving What We Can community at givingwhatwecan.org. To learn more about why people join an effective giving community, I recommend you check out the playlist linked in this video. Finally, I'd like to thank the many contributors who helped write and edit this, in particular to Tony Adelberg for her work on the final draft. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe, and until next time, keep on doing good.